You have to ruin the story she's telling herself about you. And that comes purely through your actions. The more you ruin her story about you, the better off you're going to be. I'd say don't worry about the affair partners, the paper process, all of that. Your wife's emotions are going to be influenced by her interactions with you above all else.
You just got to be coachable.
Men, the admission for today's video is only one thing. If you're trying to save your marriage and you want to know how to do it, press that like button, but more importantly for you, press the subscribe button and change the settings to all. I don't want you to miss one single video that could actually help you save your marriage.
Dylan, thank you for coming on today. Let's just start with your story. Where were you whenever you joined the Divorce Stoppers program, and what had you tried before joining the program?
When I joined the program, it was, I think, late February, early March of this year, 2025. I was in the middle of still being the subject of a restraining order from December with my wife. She had actually gotten me arrested at gunpoint the day after an argument we had that I was under the impression was reconciled. I hadn't seen her or our son in months. I was trying to frantically figure out, how do I go on a journey to repair the marriage in a way that was going to be sustainable, because everything I had tried before that was working on the relationship, trying to be, a man that made her happy. I was trying to be selfless. I was making covert contracts. She had major confirmation bias, and I was desperately searching for a solution because I had looked at so many different YouTube channels, and I had known that my wife had confirmation bias, because it's like you say, and I've lived through this. It's not about the 100 things you do right, it's the one thing you do wrong. And that was exactly what was going on with my wife's head. It had completely led to me succumbing to her emotional leadership. And that caused our relationship to just kind of toss and tumble from all of her emotional volatility. So when I found the program, I had been looking into a lot of other coaches online, but no one I didn't really quite feel like anyone had the exact phrasing or terminology that I felt applied to my situation until I stumbled across your videos. And then when you started talking about the psychology behind the confirmation bias and how to stop the train and turn it around, that was when I was like, this is what I need to do.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. Let me ask you a question, because I honestly do not know the answer to this, so I'm going to learn something. I do not watch other creators that are in this niche. I don't watch their content on purpose because I don't want it to influence me. And that might be foolish, because I'm sure there's value that they could add to even help me grow. And I do pursue growth even in this area constantly. I sign up for leadership programs, and my biggest expense in my life outside of donations is continued education. But I on purpose don't watch people on YouTube in this niche, because I did that a few years ago and it influenced my content a little bit. And I don't want that to happen. Do other creators on YouTube actually use the word or talk about confirmation bias?
None of the ones that I watched did. They all kind of take different angles. But a lot of them, I think you point this out too, they kind of really preach no contact, which to me, I was like, I'm already doing no contact forcefully. So it's not like that's helping me out at all. So, none of the ones that I saw talk about it. A lot of them talk about things like staying in your frame, being in your masculine, weathering her emotional storms, those types of things. But I think those are kind of common threads that you'll see through any coach that actually gets results. But I think that for me, really kind of looking at it from the context of confirmation bias was the real game changer for me, of understanding how to break it from all of your knowledge and understanding and wisdom. To me, that was the real thing that drew me in. And then as I got in the program and started really following it consistently, I remember you told me, where you're at right now, start with section 5, victor mindset, and then section 7, which is season of the rock in the desert. Right. And I had to really sit there and digest those before actually starting, quote unquote, the program. So it was extremely helpful, but it was the right thing that I needed at the time. And I think that's why I had a mentality that gets a lot of positive feedback from other men in the Iron Sharpens Iron group. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. And it's okay if you would think that I'm wrong. I'm completely okay with that. But the intentions, when we set this program up, the program is 11 years old. The version of it that we're teaching today, because I've enhanced it and made it better and better and better, is, I guess, going on 4 years old. One of the things that when we set it up is I truly believe that in the 14 steps that we walk you through of reconciliation, that that's all that's needed in restoration. I've never, to date, I've never seen somebody actually complete
do and process all 14 steps and continue taking the coaching, that it didn't work to restore their marriage. I've not even seen that once. I'm not saying I won't, but so far I haven't. And I think one of the reasons for that is because if you combine the steps with the live coaching and then the understanding, I like to call the coup, the knowledge, understanding, and the wisdom around that, as a student, you're a real person. You're interacting with another real person. And at that moment, you're trying to reattract them back. And today you might be like majority of students in step one. But in your situation, like what you're pointing out, we pivoted from the beginning and took you further into the program because of the reality of where you were, where your wife was, where the restraining order was, all of those different variables. It made sense for you to still do the 14 steps, but we didn't do them in order. Well, how do we know that? We speak to you. We do live coaching.
Yep.
And that's
a big deal, right? Because I couldn't text her. So I had to figure out, and the first thing I had to do was adopt that victor mindset of, I'm not a victim. I'm going to hold myself accountable, and I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to know that I'm going to get to my goal. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how many obstacles I have to get there, but I'm going to make it happen. Yeah.
And for anybody listening to this video, please do not fall into the assumption, because we are not trying to mislead you into believing that if you have zero communication, that the marriage can be restored. But there are some things that you can do to increase your chances of changing that, to start communicating. I totally understand the restraining order and being arrested. I have a criminal record myself. The only three times that I can remember anyway that I've ever been arrested was for violating restraining orders that I had never been served with. And they were in 3 different counties. So I would get arrested in my own home in my little town where I was living at the time. And then I would be transported to another county's detention center for violating restraining orders that I had never been served with. But that's interesting. So for anybody out there that maybe you don't have a lot of communication, we do have to change that, because I think what's radically different about what we're doing in the Divorce Hoppers program is that it incorporates communication. Number one, a lot of programs don't really touch on communication. It's everything else that you said. Being the best version of yourself, changing in your leadership, and all these different things, which it varies between 47 and 53% of the students on any given month that come into the Divorce Hoppers program literally come from other programs. Well, why is that? Because the feedback that we're getting from the students that come in is, it's making me feel good about myself. I'm no longer like depressed or sitting on the couch or feeling like I want to check out because I'm hopeless. But it's made my relationship worse. Well, why is that? Well, when you start becoming the better you and you leave her behind, number one, it's not fair. And of course, who wouldn't resent those changes? And so we think, well, if I become everything she wanted, then she'll like that. Yeah, that part of that may be true, but that's not enough. If you don't do it full circle and build intimacy and communication, you'll literally make things worse. Well, how do you do that? You got to understand what confirmation bias is. And then you have to understand, how do you dissolve confirmation bias? And equally importantly, how long does it take for it to become a biological change? Because confirmation bias has been activated to the point that you're facing a divorce or separation. It literally is biological. You changing yourself is not enough. You have to also change her. And that's what the goal of this program really, really focuses on first step. Now, there's side effects that carry into the rest of your life, right? And that wasn't necessarily the intentions when we started the program, but I'm very, very thankful for those side effects. Let me ask you this. We've heard a little bit about where you were. If you're okay sharing this, share a little bit about where she was whenever we met you. I mean, we kind of have an idea since there was a restraining order.
Yeah. So in December was the last time that I saw her before April 14th. Our lease to our house that we were renting, we had a 4-bedroom house with about 2,500 square feet, nice backyard, just like very picturesque.
American dream.
The lease expired in February, right? And so she moved out. So then I didn't even know where she was living at the time. Hadn't seen my son in months. She was very upset, but I think one of the big things that you talk about that is really a common theme with a lot of the wives of the men in the program is that she's extremely avoidant. Extremely anxious, avoidant person.
Right.
So it was a matter of, to get her to engage with me, I just started doing things that would get her attention. And she didn't want anything to do with me. I was blocked on every single platform. Obviously there was no communication. And what I was doing was I was kind of living in a vacuum, thinking to myself, like, I'm going to be in the gym, I'm going to be reading books, I'm going to be working on my spice constantly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was critical because showing that off, I think, helped her to know that I was not just sitting there being resentful. I was out working on myself in a way that stirred emotions in her.
Yeah.
And those emotions caused her to reach out to me the day before, or the Friday before the Monday of our hearing for the full-blown actual restraining order, because it kept getting kicked down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't actually have the hearing to enforce a permanent restraining order, but we had a temporary one that was just carried on from hearing to hearing from constant rescheduling for months.
Right.
So she had reached out to me the Friday before the Monday of our hearing, and she said, I'm ready to talk. Our son got a haircut today. And then that was how we restarted communication. And I'll say that the first 5 or 6 times we interacted, both at the courthouse after the hearing was done, we just did a stipulation contract to allow us to communicate again, and we dropped the restraining order. We were just basically, I was trying to be PPP with her, positive, polite, and playful, and she was just so mad. She was yelling at me almost every time we interacted, and I just kept my cool and stayed grounded. I put a good name on all of her bets. I think that was really indicative of where she was at. She was not in a place where she wanted to be on good terms with me, to do anything with me, nothing like that. And now it's drastically different.
So for anybody that's listening to this video, I want to provide some value here. I want to give you like a little mini coaching. And Dylan, if you're okay, patient, why just spend 10 seconds doing that. So for a lot of you right now, if you're watching this video and your wife has a restraining order, or she's cut off all communication and she's blocked you, that was exactly where Dylan was. And of course, communication, you've got to have communication to restore. You can't just restore not talking to somebody. But one of the things, if you'll hear what he's saying, he's telling you how to take the first step without even coming into the divorce shoppers program. He's literally telling you, hey, the way that you get her to want to communicate is align your actions with your goals instead of align your actions with your feelings. So today you might be feeling like, I just want to lay on the couch and eat Cheetos, or maybe like you might be where I was at. I just want to lay on the couch and feel sorry for myself and have thoughts of checking out and not eat anything and lose 40 pounds in 3 weeks because I was just so freaking depressed. Well, all that's going to do is confirm the story that she's telling herself and the enemies of the marriage is that you're a low value man, that that you're not doing a take action guy to what that's confirming for her. If you're laying there depressed and miserable and you're not taking some of the action steps like what Dylan just described that he took, which actually prompted her to reach out to him to communicate, even though for all intents and purposes, she literally had him blocked to the point that it was a by law blocked. He was legally blocked with a restraining order. Well, if he would have aligned his actions with his feelings instead of doing what we teach in the program, he would have laid up on the couch, miserable, lonely, and depressed. And so what that tells her, if you're doing that, is it tells her that I'm literally, as a woman, responsible for his happiness. And it's screaming selfish, selfish, selfish. Don't you want to come back to me so I can put the pressure on you to keep me happy? No fucking woman on the face of the earth wants to do that. They're not going to do that. But what do you feel like doing that? Especially now you're mad, you're pissed off, you're hurt because you got arrested for violating a restraining order. Now you got the courts involved and all this drama that comes with that. And of course, it's very easy to align your actions with your feelings because nobody's going to feel great about any of that. But if you don't start aligning your actions with your goals, nothing's going to change. If you stay in that delusional state of thinking, well, I'm going to be driving down the freeway and the magical unicorn's going to cross over in front of me. And when I hit it with my truck or my car, bam, I'm going to wake up the next day and the unicorn pixie dust has went all over me and I'll wake up and she's there. I mean, I literally was delusional and I wasn't having that exact thought, but looking back on my situation now, I literally just thought it's just going to fix itself. This is such a horrific hell that I'm living in that something has to get better. Listen, it will get worse if you don't position your leadership to put time on your side. So we just gave you a tidbit of something that you can actually do. Go live your life and get your happy back. Now, that's not enough to restore a marriage, but that is enough usually to get her to engage in communication. And if not, we have other things that you can try too. All right. So Dylan, question. So restoration is a series of pushes and pulls.
Yes.
Sometimes as we work to reattract a couple to change the man, to change the woman's opinion of the man. And ultimately, the goal is to change the woman's opinion of her own self, to lead herself back to where they have to thrive without needing you, without you needing her. Two independent people that are there for each other, that prefer each other, but there's no pressure on her and there's no pressure on you to keep each other happy. It's just two people. And today, I give you the right to be miserable because we're humans. And I'm still happy on my own. And it's not contingent on your happiness. And today, if I'm in a bad mood, I have the space to do that. And it's freedom. In other words, so in the program, I teach it's okay if you really want your wife to blossom and bloom and thrive and be your helpmate and you be her helper and you guys help each other, back off and give her permission to fail, fall, and fuck up, the 3 Fs. Because that's how she learns to mature. For a lot of you, if you're watching this video right now, if you would say that your wife has ever said, I feel like your child, I can't be around you, I don't feel like I'm free when I'm with you, I feel suffocated. It's because you have probably with good intentions and love come in to try to fix things, fix her and protect her, but you haven't given her the right to adult. So that's why she might be using words like you're controlling or you're a narcissist and you're too close to your situation to see it. So Dylan,
Yes.
restraining order in place. Separated physically was the D word being used.
A lot of you thinking, well, I've got to become the best version of myself if I want my marriage restored. I've got to go change. I've got to go do everything differently. All the stuff that she told me of the reasons she wants out of the marriage, I've got to go change those things. If you've already done all of that, but it hasn't worked, put that in the comments if that's you. Have you become the man that she said she's always wanted, but it's not enough? Maybe you were an alcoholic. Maybe you were a controlling narcissist. Maybe you were a psychopath. Maybe you were verbally abusive. Maybe you weren't intimate with her. Maybe you didn't value her opinion. But now all of a sudden, you do all of those things, but it still hasn't worked. Here's the question. Put in the comments if you have realized that that's not enough. You changing is a beautiful thing, and that's probably a requirement.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be enough to save the marriage if she has confirmation bias.
Yeah.
You've got to lead her to change.
So Dylan,
Yes.
restraining order in place. Separated physically was the D word being used.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, she filed early March, 2 weeks after one of our hearings that got postponed.
Wow, I didn't realize that, I don't think. How did you respond to that emotionally when you found out that the divorce was filed, when she wanted a divorce?
Oh man, it felt like the earth beneath my feet had been pulled out from under me for a second time. The first being the arrest and the restraining order. The second being that seeing that happen was jarring. And if you look at the way we interact now, you'd think that there's no way you're getting divorced, right? It's just completely different, even though we don't live together right now. But it was absolutely like, it's not like you're exaggerating when you say that. You feel as if you're just going to wake up from this hell and you're going to wake up in your bed before any of this happened and your wife's going to be sitting there and you're like, oh, thank God it was just a nightmare. It's like, no, you can't live like that, even though your brain wants to tell you to think like that.
And it does. Your brain literally will tell you that in your subconscious because it's a defense and protection mechanism to protect your sanity, because it keeps you from slipping literally into PTSD. It literally does. It literally does that. Mine did it. It sounds like yours did it. And it's very normal for probably a lot of men that's going to be watching this video that can relate to that. Let me ask you this. Before you came into the Divorce Stoppers program, I know you said you were like every resource at your fingertips that you could find on Google and on YouTube. You were looking at those different coaches. You were trying to find those golden nuggets of something that was real that you could actually do to like change her mind, change yourself. Did you guys together and individually try to fix their marriage before you found us?
Oh man. So we had gone to couples counseling in early 2024. And then for a good chunk of 2024, things seemed pretty good. Then, we had an argument in September and she had demanded that I go back to couples counseling with her. And I had to go on a business trip to go see a huge customer of mine up north. I told her I can't go until I'm back. So about a week later, after I get back from my business trip, we do our counseling appointment with the same counselor. I came in and, I think you point this out really, really eloquently. You can't fix the relationship by talking about the problems. And we came in and I said, here's my perspective on the problems. Here's how I kind of view our situation. I looked at my wife and I said, your turn to speak. And she just started screaming so much that we literally got our couples counselor quit on us.
Yeah.
So I, at that point, oh my gosh, how in the world are we going to reconcile these problems and fix the marriage when she won't even talk to the couples counselor in a way that keeps him as our counselor?
How can we fix our problems if she don't want to talk about the problems? I got it. Exactly,
right? And I always thought, communication, but as with her being that was never the answer, right? It's so, everything's so counterintuitive, but when it works, it really, really works. And, those next 3 months, it was just this constant, like me trying to work on the relationship, trying to fix everything, trying to make her happy, prioritize her happiness over me and my goals and my ambitions. And that was really something that just progressively made it worse over time.
Right.
So we had tried a lot of things individually, together. Obviously that failed. She had a counselor that called her out on her behavior a little bit, and then she quit that counselor. So then I thought, you won't see your counselor, you won't see a couples counselor because you got them to quit. Like, what am I supposed to do? I felt like every conventional channel was completely exhausted.
Yeah.
Completely.
I would go so far as to say that 999 times that if a wife has a counselor, particularly on her own, that counselor will literally become an enemy of the marriage. Now, if you're one of my students, I position you how to go with the counselor, and we use the counselor. But I majored in psychology in school, and I very quickly realized that this is not going to work to help couples, because what I was learning in my education at the university on how do you fix PTSD with somebody, that works. But what I was learning in school, how do you help a couple that's having relationship or marital issues? It's exactly the opposite of what works. And so it is the reason, if you look at the statistics around does couples counseling work, you can almost guarantee statistically, there's almost an 80% chance if you as a couple walk in that door to visit a counselor, that their goal is to help you have an amicable divorce, because it is not normal for a marriage to be restored, and they know it. I mean, if they're a brand new counselor fresh out of college, they haven't experienced enough clients yet to realize that the training that they've got on the way that they. And here's something else. A lot of times, I recently met a handful of counselors at a convention that I went to, and one of the things that they all told me is, we know it doesn't work. But because we take insurance, if we do what we know is work, it would be considered malpractice, because it's outlined our training and our education, and our malpractice insurance would not allow us to do it. And I'm just like, wow. And I don't know if you know this, you might have heard me talk about this in some of my videos or even inside the program. Several years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer. I had three specialists want to put me on hospice. They all wanted to remove my tongue and put me on a feeding tube. I spoke to one of those specialists with some clinical trials that I had found. He literally closed the door, because the door to the office was open and we were close to the administrator's office. And he looked me in the eye and whispered, he said, I can't tell you this. He said, but we have to go by standards of protocol or we'll get in trouble. He said, what you're showing me will be the future of cancer treatment. But here, because it's not been approved for our particular office, we'll get in trouble for doing it. And he looked me in the eye again and said, run. And I was there for a feeding tube that day. And I'm like, to prep me to die. I'm not even joking. So the same principle. And so that's one of the things that a lot of times, that you think when you go to somebody for help that they're going to do what's in your best interest. Sometimes they might even see what's in your best interest and they have a heart to do what's in your best interest, but their hands are literally tied. My life was on the line. And the doctors they would have got sued potentially for malpractice if they would have told me the truth. Even people with good hearts and good intentions may not be allowed even legally to have your best interest at heart if your goal is marriage restoration. So your wife was in a place of divorce. So let's fast forward to this. She's in counseling. You tried couples counseling. What made you actually decide to join the Divorce Stoppers program after you booked a call with us and we extended the opportunity? Because we do screen. Not everybody can just come in. There's not a link where you can register for this. We want to know, like I say in every one of my videos, you just got to be coachable, because I don't want some asshole inside the program that's not going to have results. 90% of the men that we bring into the program, they're assholes when we meet them. I was an asshole as the first student in the program, but you got to be coachable. So it's okay if you're an asshole. But the question was, clearly we saw that you were coachable. What made you seek us out and decide, wow, this program is exactly what I need, even in light of my situation, that I think that this actually can help me turn my marriage around?
Yeah, it was like I said, I had not reached out, but I had looked at a bunch of different creators and seen what their approaches were. And I just didn't feel like any of them really quite had the confidence in like their approach. Like I would see like little things that I thought made sense. I was trying to stitch together these tidbits, and I would try to go through the entire library of videos. I did the same thing with you. I think I watched all your videos at least once or twice.
Wow.
Before I had booked a call. I remember I was driving back home one night, and I got home and I got in my driveway. I remember I was like, I'm just going to go on Denver's website and I'm just going to book a call. And I remember I went to the chat box, and then you started talking to me on the chat, and I was like, hey, I have a restraining order, this and that. And you're like, oh, this reminds me of me. I had restraining orders too. And I was like, oh, I was like, thank God someone's going to get it, because a lot of the dating coaches or get your ex back coaches or whatever, those types of guys, they coach with this aspect of, you're just going to do these manipulative behaviors to get your relationship back. And I was like, no, I don't need that, because I need to get my relationship back and build it back stronger than before. Otherwise, we're just going to repeat this cycle again. So it was one, the fact that, you took this scientific / biblical approach of, well, let's break the confirmation bias. Let's use all this knowledge and understanding and wisdom to transform you. And how do you go in a direction where you stop the train, right? And the wife gets back into her feminine and starts following your leadership. And I'm seeing that almost every day now. It's really on the right trajectory. Aside from that too, just the fact that a lot of these other coaches, they're like, oh, you had a restraining order, there's no way I can help you then, right? Sure. And so, seeing that and hearing about some other men in the program who've also had orders of protection or restraining orders against them, and they're also on the path to restoring their marriage, it was something that I was like, okay, this is the only program that I've seen where there is not this like throw in the towel when the law is involved or something. And so that was to me a huge like bolster of confidence. And then, once I actually got out of the YouTube channels and into the actual content of the program, seeing what was happening in the Iron Sharpens Iron group, that was when I realized like there is some serious truth to this. And having implemented it myself over the last barely more than 2 months, some of my friends are just completely in disbelief at how things have turned around. They are just shocked.
It's not normal. Like they probably in their entire lifetimes have never seen it happen, because it's so rare what we do.
Exactly. It's utterly rare. And I think a lot of men get in these situations when they don't have the knowledge, understanding, and wisdom of how to reverse the train. When a woman has severe confirmation bias, they'll say things like, you never loved me, or you were always XYZ, whatever the negative personality trait is, right?
Yeah.
It seems like you kind of go crazy as a man, because we operate out of logic and the reality that's in front of our eyes. We're very fixing oriented creatures. But when the woman does that, it almost feels like she's not just saying something in the present, but she's rewriting your past. And that makes us go insane, because we're very logical, right? So it's learning how to not look back, how to move forward towards your goal, knowing that you're going to get there no matter how long it takes you, because you're aligning your actions to your goal, not your feelings. And that to me was one of the absolute biggest things that I realized, was retroactively how much my feelings were steering all of my actions.
Sure.
And just constantly. And so that was one of the biggest immediate shifts that really helped me to turn the train around quickly.
Yeah. And I think that's a common thread with everybody, even if they're maybe they're only 10% in a negative relationship. Maybe they're just having relationship problems and it's just rocky, and the wife maybe doesn't have confirmation bias. For anybody that has confirmation bias watching YouTube, by the way, will never restore your marriage. You'll run out of time before it ends if you wait, because this is information on YouTube. To get rid of confirmation bias, you literally have to have as a requirement. Transformation takes a guided step-by-step framework that you have to follow. And sometimes you have to pivot the steps, and you have to do it consistently for the amount of time that it takes through neural plasticity of her thinking different thoughts to biologically change to the point that we could see a different image on a brain scan with both of you as you make the transformation. Did you notice a shift in how she responded to you when you pivoted back to step 1.1 and 1.2, where we're teaching the communication, and describe your mindset around that when you were seeing it work or not work?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of the very first times that I saw a huge win with the 1.1, 1.2, the texting communications, was she had been texting me out of the blue one day. I think it was after a drop off with our son. And she had told me she was going to cancel truck insurance. And I started reflexively, because this was one of our first communications back, trying to be like, well, you can't really do that and this and that. And then I caught myself and I stopped after a couple exchanges. And then I basically just came out and said, hey, you know what? I hear you. You're right. The last couple months must have been so hard on you. And she immediately turned around and said, you know what? No big deal. I'll keep you on it as long as possible, or just let me know when it works for you. It's clearly been harder on you the last couple months. And I just saw this. I've never seen her do a 180 that fast in my life by just positively agreeing with her negative feelings. I was just floored. And then that was what really made me feel like we were off to the races. Like I was like, okay, now that we're actually implementing this, it was the best boost of confidence.
We turned that around. Of course it is. And so that's what I like to say that's really different about what we're doing here. Is my goal to make you feel all gushy and mushy inside? Yes, it is. It is. It actually is. If you're depressed and you're emotional and you've given up hope, yes, I immediately want to change that. But how do I do that? Not by helping you feel bigger about your biceps, not by adding 3 inches to your manhood. The way that we want to do that is very quickly show you results that the train has turned around and you're heading back to restoration. And that's the number one goal. The rest of it's beautiful. And yes, we do those things too. And it makes sense to do those things, but not only those things, because it leaves her behind and it doesn't change her. If she doesn't change, what good is that for the relationship? And if it's all about actually creating intimacy and truly caring about another person that you want restored, doesn't it make sense to not leave the woman that you love in the weeds, miserable, pissed off, and angry? And the good thing is, what would you say to a guy right now that's saying they're talking about communication, but in the past 2 months, the only thing she'll talk to me about is the kids or the bills? Can we use that?
Absolutely. And I think for a lot of people in these situations, I don't think they realize that they're trying to leverage those as ways to work on the relationship. But what they should be thinking about doing is taking those logistics, or for us, for example, I kind of mapped out, like, what are the things I can talk to her about? One, our son, logistics. Maybe I can get her to open up about work, which she does to me now. Maybe I can get her to talk about her personal life, which she's starting to. Maybe I can get her to talk about her mental and physical health and her emotions. She's starting to do that as well. And then when she feels safe talking about all these things, she'll be willing to talk about the relationship on her terms. Yeah. But the way I look at it is, and I think you do such an amazing job of teaching this, is you got to take even the slightest bland, neutral logistics, whatever communication it is, and you have to make her feel like communicating with you is a reward. You see into her. She knows that she comes to you with, hey, this bill needs to get paid. And then you say, hey, I can see it's stressing you out. Like, I'm going to take care of this XYZ, right? It's just something as simple as that. But I feel like when I learned how to really stop just talking back and forth neutrally and start seeing her with even the most neutral, short, curt text that I would get from her, it took a little bit of time, but once the ball starts rolling, it rolls faster and faster and faster. And now she initiates doing things with me. Like yesterday, we walked into Costco with our son and we were sitting there hanging out and he was eating pizza and we were like laughing and joking around with each other at the table, eating a Costco pizza. So just the way things change, it advances really quickly, especially once you break the confirmation bias.
Yeah, I love that. And for a lot of people may not even recognize, we're kind of giving all of you that are watching this almost like a coaching session. So what he's describing, PPP. So PPP is the opposite of CCC. So what is CCC? You stop complaining, condemning, or criticizing. Get rid of that. You replace it with positive, polite, and playful. And while that's beautiful, positive, polite, and playful will get you intimately connected with an emotional affair. It'll get you to start having the ability to position yourself to become best friends again. But then we have to position, so it's not just PPP, because we have got to very quickly also lead the relationship to sexual passion, because we don't want to get stuck in the friend zone. So then our goal changes over to hang out, have fun, and eventually hook up. And so I'm crassly saying that for the sake of speed, but that is the goal, because a relationship, a marriage, it has to have all of those things. Well, how do you lead to hang out, have fun, and hook up? You talk about a bill. You talk about something logistic. And even around the smallest thing, you can build intimacy to make a woman feel heard, seen, and valued. And for her, this is what I like to say when I say, men typically just need, well, always, if you're not one of my students, if you're one of my students, we change that. But for all men, before they become a student in the program, They just need a place to have sex. Women always need a reason. And when you're talking about a light bill, you can literally make her feel heard, valued, and seen and build intimacy to make her feel safe to be emotionally penetrated. And when a woman is feeling safe enough to be emotionally penetrated, the next natural course of action, if you understand how to navigate those waters to passion, is physical penetration. And I don't actually mean that to be crass. I'm a very crass teacher about everything. I wouldn't necessarily agree with your statement that I do anything eloquent, because the goal is the fastest way is the best way. And so I always relate the marriage restoration to money. And one of my favorite sayings around money is money loves speed. And there's nothing wrong with speeding things up. Now, you also probably heard me say this a million times. To speed things up, we've got to slow down. And that does make sense. It doesn't really contradict itself, but I know as a student. So what he's saying is something else. When you stop defending yourself, she'll start defending you. When a woman's defending you, she's on your side because you've raised the white flag. Peace is starting to exist. Intimacy can never be built until there's peace. So he literally just gave you an example of how to do that. If you need more, you might want to book a call with us and we'll do a strategy session to see if we can do that for you. Where's your relationship now compared to where you started?
I have another free resource that you can take advantage of right now. My video editor is putting the QR code and the website for this. It's called our free Marriage U-Turn Masterclass. You can register for that right now. Now listen, this week we only have a limited number of spots for my live free Marriage U-Turn Masterclass. What I want you to do right now is pause this video and scan the QR code that my video editor is putting on the website. If you're watching this on your cell phone, you can go to the comment section and click on the link, or simply type in the website that's on the screen, which is denvergriffin.com/masterclass. Right now, pause the video, go register for that, and then come back and I'm going to give you a second free resource.
Where's your relationship now compared to where you started?
Oh my gosh, it's completely different. She initiates FaceTime calls to me over simple things. Like earlier this week, she FaceTime called me just to tell me that our son was calling Fruit Loops loop-de-loops. She invited me this morning to take our son to school because she was dropping her grandma off for a very minor surgery at a surgery center. So I saw her and her grandma, and I took our son to school this morning, and I texted her and I was like, hey, do you want a nice latte? And she said, yeah, that'd be great. So we're doing that. Actually, yesterday when we were at our Costco exchange with our son, she actually looked at me and reached out and grabbed my hand and then said, oh, I'll take these napkins. But she used me holding the napkins as an excuse to touch my hand because she didn't have to take the napkins.
No, of course not.
Yeah, but it's like, there's been things like that. Or like a week ago or so, I looked at her and I was like, oh, there's a bug in your hair. And then I went and brushed her hair, and then she like leaned her head in while I did it. And so we're seeing like these behaviors that, if you on paper were to say what had been going on, you'd think there's no way in hell that would ever happen again. No. There's no way she's going to let you touch her hair or reach out and touch you, but she's doing those things of her own will. And it's amazing because she is starting to defer to my leadership. She is starting to be warm. It's almost like when we interact with each other now, I get this sense that she's in her head trying to figure out how to reconcile what's going on in front of her with her confirmation bias that might be lingering left, even though I think we've pretty much broken it.
Yep.
And it's crazy to think about because I couldn't have imagined this 3 or 4 months ago. Like, there's no way.
From what you're describing 3 or 4 months ago, she literally didn't trust you. But one of the things that you hear me say is it's not up to her if she trusts you. That's up to you. But I just show you how to get that back. So true or false? I've never met her. She's never taken a module in the program, and she's never been on one of our coaching calls. True or false?
Very true.
But it sounds like from what you're describing, she has radically changed and becoming a happier, friendlier, more fulfilled, and better version of herself. So would you say that your changes have contributed to helping her with that and leading her to become the best her?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that the biggest takeaway from watching her change over the last couple months has been because my emotional leadership is very stable. I am the one that she can yell at, she can do whatever, she can be sad, she can be stressed, and it doesn't matter. I'm just very stable and I don't react to her, and I reward her for sharing her feelings with me. Whenever she shares her feelings with me, I say, hey, thanks for feeling safe enough to share your feelings with me. And I agree with them, all these feelings. And a lot of people, they think, as they see this process going on of, oh, she's yelling at you or this or that, it's like, well, you're just being a doormat. And I say, no, I'm not a doormat. I'm demonstrating emotional leadership. And I reframe it to them and explain it to them that I'm being like that to show her that's how we need to be. That we need to be PPP with each other, that we need to be acknowledging each other's feelings in a way that is caring and intimate, right? And when people look at it like that, I tell them, like, if you have a kid who's on the floor rolling around screaming, you don't follow their lead, right? You demonstrate, you model the right behavior. And then everyone clicks when I explain it like that. And I also
let me tell you another way that you can describe that. What you're actually doing is you're evolving into becoming a 1% of a 1% man that's walking in the most beautiful and manly type of masculinity. And I could sum that up a different way. You have become the 20-pound bottle of Valium that no matter what button she pushes, it's not phasing you. And so let me say that a third way. You have developed the ability to align your actions with your goals instead of your feelings. So when she starts, what my wife would say, even if she's having a bitch fit, right? I will step back and calm down, realize I'm an adult, I'm a man, I'm not a 3-year-old, like what you just said. So calm down, grow up, and just get closer, even and especially when she doesn't deserve it.
Yep.
And that gives her the freedom to grow, and it literally will cause her to see herself in my eyes and start becoming more adult-like herself in communication. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I will say that I think with my wife in particular, and I'm sure this is a common thread with a lot of other ones, the emotional immaturity that comes from a woman flipping into a masculine polarity it's very jarring to deal with, but I feel like they're not meant to be in that frame. They're really not. They need to be led emotionally by a stable, grounded man who has his direction and his goals in mind. And, once you kind of lock that dynamic in the right way, I completely feel it changing. And when I was served divorce papers by her in early May, I texted her afterwards, and my text was one line. And I just said, you're going to feel really silly when we're sitting on a beach in Hawaii in August. And that's what I said to her. And I put a smiley face. And I thought that was the most PPP response possible. And at this point in time, I'm very convinced that I could probably get her to Hawaii in August.
I believe that, and I'll tell you something. That night, you did what I like to call, you made money while you were sleeping, because I'm sure she was replaying that comment over and over, because who doesn't want that? And what's crazy is you're making her believe that she can have the life that she's supposed to have within your garden, that maybe that grass that was greener on the other side just a few short months ago, maybe it's greener on this side. What if, right? How has your role in your leadership evolved as a father?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's a critical junction in our relationship, because with her confirmation bias, it was like, if I tried to even use just a stern tone of voice with my son, she would lose it. Right. And now I give our son space when he has his little tantrums. I'm very PPP with him. I redirect him playfully. Once I apply that, I feel like I'm modeling a much more masculine centered role for my son. How does
that make you feel as a man?
Oh, so much better. So much better. I don't feel like I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, I'm going to get irritated if he does X, Y, Z. It's more of like, okay, how do I be PPP with this? How do I show him that, it's okay to put a good name on negative feelings, and to be grounded and stable, and to, lead in your masculine frame. And he really is starting to slowly observe this. And it's really starting to take hold when he's with me. And even earlier this week, when my wife had FaceTimed me over the Fruit Loops thing, she took one of his Fruit Loops and he started having a meltdown. And I said, hey, instead of saying, mommy's mean, she took my Fruit Loop, why don't you say, hey, I'm a really good sharer for sharing my Fruit Loops with mommy. And my wife turned the phone and looked into the FaceTime to me, and she said, I really like that. And she's like, praised my parenting. Whereas before, anything I did was wrong, or no matter what it was with our son. So it was a huge win, where it's like that I'm getting praised and complimented by her for my parenting skills because I'm being PPP.
Yeah, well, not only that, I would go so far as to say that you're building intimacy with your son, and you're teaching him how to be a husband. You're teaching him how to be the right kind of man to succeed on another level in society, to not believe the lies that we've been told since birth, and to also lead a woman into blossoming within a relationship. It's very rare and almost unheard of that a man knows how to do that. Last question. That man that's sitting out there today, restraining order, she's blocked him. They're only talking about the kids. They're only talking about the bills. She's filed for divorce. She's telling all of the enemies of the marriage, her sister, her emotional affair partner, her physical affair partner, her mama, and her hairdresser, that you're a controlling narcissistic pig. What would you say to that guy that his wife is maybe even divorced him, but she's not remarried, but she might even have a boyfriend, but he just knows that the marriage could be reconciled? But he's tried everything, counseling, he's tried no contacts, he's tried other programs. Nothing has worked. What would you tell that guy today that is feeling hopeless, that's on the couch, that's lost 40 pounds, and he doesn't know what else to do? What would you tell that guy and why?
Man, I would say, one, you have to believe you can make it happen, and you have to start walking towards it no matter how hard it seems. For me, it seemed like I was like, what the hell is about to happen in my life? And now I'm confident that the vision has changed. And two, you have to ruin the story she's telling herself about you. And that comes purely through your actions, right? No one decides what you do except for you. The more you ruin her story about you, the better off you're going to be in advancing your goal. Three, I'd say, don't worry about the affair partners, the paper process, all of that, because ultimately your wife's emotions are going to be influenced by her interactions with you above all else, right? Mm-hmm. If you have great interactions with her 100 times out of 100 times, she's not going to have a reason to be mad at you or want the divorce. Even around
logistical stuff, if she don't want to talk about the relationship?
Absolutely, right? It's easy once you get the hang of it. It's a small tweak, but once you get it, it starts paying dividends, and you just start stacking wins over and over and over again. I'd also tell people, look at the wins that you have every day in your relationship, even for yourself. Hey, did I work on my spikes today? Did I get up early and go to the gym? Did I do something that other people don't want to do? Did I take care of myself in a way that most men don't? Mm-hmm. Did I make a random person smile today? Those are the things that I reward myself for when I do. And that's starting to carry over into the relationship. And my wife is feeling it. She's laughing, smiling with me, inviting me to do things now, spending more time with me. She gets dressed up whenever she sees me at our exchanges now. Even on a Wednesday night, she's like dressed up in a skirt and a blouse and has her makeup done. And I'm like, you just came from work, like, and she's a nurse, so she's in scrubs all the time. So,
right.
You can change everything, but it's entirely up to you. Don't believe the BS that other people tell you, like your friends or, those other people, because they're all acting out of their feelings and they don't know how to restore a relationship that's in that situation. And my friends look at me and they're just like, what the hell? How are you doing this?
How are you doing it? Because it's not normal. And maybe even a lot of cases, they've been through a failed relationship and they tried at all costs to fix it, but they didn't try the way that we do it here, which is we don't try. We actually just do it. And so they saw it fail. So they're telling you there's no hope. And so I think one of the reasons I attract a different audience from some people is because I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And I on purpose try to make sure I show that on these YouTube videos because I don't want to even get somebody on a phone call that I'm not their cup of tea. But the difference is I was in a failed relationship. My wife wanted a divorce. She filed for a divorce. I wanted to save it. And so that's how I understood it. This is what I like to say. God doesn't necessarily always call the qualified, like a counselor, but maybe sometimes he qualifies the called. And so my qualification comes from my own life experiences. Of course, I've studied this, for decades in psychology. And so we incorporate all of those things into it. And there is a biblical element because of my beliefs there, but I don't think you've probably ever even heard me teach anything from that perspective unless I can back it up with data that says, I don't care what your faith is. If you'll incorporate this, here's the numbers that this works. And then you see that manifested maybe in your own life, but also students that honestly, I know that you've seen some of the other brothers in the Iron Sharp Design group that were in worse situations than what you were in. And yours was pretty dire. So, listen, it's really, really a beautiful thing to hear about the changes that's happened in your relationship. I'm ecstatically excited for you. And don't take offense to this. I think I'm more excited for the mom of your child and also for your son, because for me, truly, my heart, this is my ministry, I like to call it, that I love helping women and children. And the way that I do that is through the men in their life transforming their leadership to build legacy, because that changes generations to come, because it affects so many people. And so this is what I would tell you in closing, Dylan, give yourself a big pat on the back, because you literally have successfully started the transformation process of what lives are going to look like for at least one more generation to come, because you have a child, because you have a son. And that's a very, very, very commendable and beautiful thing, brother. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
No, I think that's it. I would just say, don't defer your hope, right? Walk towards your objective. I'm a big fan of the program, obviously. I've seen tons of wins. I've seen a lot of other men get a lot of wins. I truly think that it is a transformation process. And if you're willing to undergo it, you can really accomplish almost anything. And I've seen dividends across my entire life with all kinds of different relationships, not just my wife. So it's really a huge splash.
I'm glad you brought that up. I guess in closing, I want to add a comment to that. If you're a man and you're watching this video right now, if you've watched enough of this content to know that your wife or your girlfriend or the mother of your child does have confirmation bias, put time on your side. You're not ever going to turn that train around and save the relationship before it's game over. If confirmation bias exists, you have to have transformation. You have to have a framework that teaches you, how do I understand what it is, but more importantly, how do I dissolve it, and what's the timing and the approach to take? Because just watching YouTube videos, maybe for 6 months, if that's where you're at and things are progressively getting worse, please step back and look at your situation and see, am I heading to game over and I'm letting it happen because I'm not willing to book that phone call to see, is there a different way? Could this result be for me too? Can I relate to this story of this circumstance? If so, there might be some wisdom, at least jumping on a call and let us talk to you to see if it might make sense for you. All right.
What I'd like you to do right now is my video editor is putting the website and the QR code. Either scan the QR code if you're watching this on a laptop or another device besides your phone. If you're watching this on a mobile device, go to this link, which is also in the description of the video, denvergriffin.com/masterclass. This week, I'm doing the free Marriage U-Turn Masterclass, which is going to help you start taking the initial steps of reversing those 4 things and understanding how do you actually dissolve confirmation bias. We have limited space available this week. Pause the video right now because I still have some more goodies here. Pause the video, register your seat for the free Marriage U-Turn Masterclass. If you go to register and it says there's no seats available, screenshot the QR code in the website and check back every few hours or every couple of days, and a seat will eventually open up. And again, if you can relate to anything that I just discussed in this video, and if you feel like I'm inside your head, guess what? The reason that you probably feel like I'm inside your head is because I literally was in these exact shoes, and I took my marriage when I was facing an unwanted divorce. I was living in Puerto Rico. I was physically separated from my wife. We were 2,000 miles separated. She was back in Arkansas, had filed a petition for divorce, and she was not having it. She had classic confirmation bias, and I was dealing with all of the things that I'm talking about in this video. I figured out how to restore my marriage, and I'm going to start the process of teaching you how to do that yourself in the free Marriage U-Turn Masterclass that you just registered for. Something else that you can do right away if you haven't already done so, train the algorithm that this video is helpful to you by not just pressing the like button, which I would be very thankful if you would do that, but also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button and change the settings to all, so as I'm posting new videos, particularly for subscribers only, that you'll be notified of that in real time. And if you are on the brink of divorce, my video editor is putting up right now this video, Save Your Marriage If You're on the Brink of Divorce. Click this video right now and watch it if you've already registered for the free Marriage U-Turn Masterclass. I'll see you guys on the inside.